Today we're back with more Scrap Mechanic, and I finally have reached 4,000 play hours in the game, so I figured it was probably the right time to actually talk about the game itself, what I think about the game, and some of the pros and cons of Scrap Mechanic. And I know there's a lot of you out there who have a lot of play hours as well, and if you do, I'd love to hear your opinions in the comments down below. Let me know how many hours you have in the game and what you think of the game overall, but I want to just talk about some of the things I think, and then you can make a decision for yourself on what you think of the game. But ultimately, I've been playing Scrap Mechanic for a long time, and I've never really talked about the game itself other than, you know, the occasional snippets here and there. So I decided to write down some points and actually go through it. And in the meantime, you guys can watch me fail horribly at trying to build a piston-powered car because I haven't really done that in forever. So obviously the big hook of Scrap Mechanic, and I think the biggest thing that keeps people coming back to it, is the fact that Scrap Mechanic is a live building sandbox game. So there aren't really any other games out there that have the live building aspect that Scrap Mechanic has. The only example I can think of recently is Bricadia, but other games like Trailmakers and such, you have to build your creation in a separate build menu before you can actually import it into the game and play with it. Whereas Scrap Mechanic, you can build something while you're working on it, while you're moving around on it. I mean, it's a terrible idea, but you could have an entire vehicle, like a train, for example, going down tracks, and as it's going down the tracks, you can place blocks onto it, remove blocks from it, and it will continue to update and calculate the physics, obviously because they use their own physics engine. Which sort of brings me into the second point I wanted to make, which is that Scrap Mechanic has a wonderful physics interaction between blocks. I know it's laggy, we'll talk about that as well, but the physics interaction that you can actually make with blocks, the fact that you can make gears in a single creation, and you could, not using mods, but you can make gears without mods, and you could just attach two pipes together and have them slap into each other, and they'll behave like a proper gear, even at high RPMs, and the fact that the physics engine can keep up with that, understand what you're trying to do, and make that work and allow us to build differentials and transmissions and all sorts of cool stuff. That is quite impressive for a sandbox game. I have yet to find other sandbox games that let us build physical gears out of stuff. I mean, you can think of many sandbox games, and of course, let me know in the comments down below. I'm just going off what I experienced in my opinion and all the thousands of hours I've played in Scrap Mechanic, and I have played a fair number of other sandbox games as well, but obviously I haven't played every game in the known universe, so if I'm getting stuff wrong, please let me know. I'm very excited to hear what you guys have to say. Live building with physics interactions, really, those are two things that I don't think any other game really does, and I just think it's really quite impressive, and of course, they're using their own physics engine, so that just makes it all that different. And I think that's the biggest hook that brought me into Scrap Mechanic and why it's so exciting to me, because mechanically you can build stuff in Scrap Mechanic that you just can't do in a lot of other games. Now, of course, we got to start talking about some of the negative things in Scrap Mechanic, and one of them, the most obvious one, I think, is that the devs are slower than the pitch drop experiment. So in case you guys don't know, the pitch drop experiment is an experiment in, I believe, Queensland, Australia, and it's an experiment that's been going on since the 30s, and it's the slowest moving liquid known to man called pitch, and essentially I think it's dropped 10 drops since 1930 when they set this up or something. So the next drop is probably scheduled to come pretty soon. I think the last one was in like 2015 or something. So we're almost at that 10-year mark or whatever, and I think the pitch drop will probably happen before the Scrap Mechanic update. So that's the main issue with Scrap Mechanic, and on top of that, the devs don't really communicate all that much. So it's one thing to not make updates for your game, which is, you know, it is what it is. I get it. People get busy. People have lives. I understand that. I don't post videos every day when I should. I totally get it. People get busy. But that being said, there's no communication either, and I think that's what frustrates a lot of players, and it's probably what makes a lot of players feel like Scrap Mechanic is an abandoned game, because honestly, we just have no idea. We don't know if they've abandoned it or not. We just know that we get an update maybe once every 2-3 years, if that. The last update was in December of 2024, where they overhauled the physics and added the smart physics option on top of the advanced option. But other than that, we haven't really seen updates, and we don't really know what's going on. Obviously, another thing we have to talk about with Scrap Mechanic is, despite the fact that it's a live building thing and you can build, you know, creations that are completely custom with physics interactions between the creation itself and other creations, there is still an issue with very large creations in Scrap Mechanic. We're obviously seeing that a bit in Nomad Survival. When we start to have a creation that has a bunch of different controllers on it and different bearing setups and pistons and all sorts of stuff that's going on and moving, the game does start to slow down in the frame rate. Again, due to that custom engine a little bit, I think. I don't really know. I'm not a computer expert, but regardless, it is a thing that happens where after you build something complicated enough, like in our first Nomad Survival where we had the castle and I tried to put a trailer on the back of it, immediately it destroyed the game frame rate. I had a castle, I tried to load it with a little drill vehicle, that destroyed the game frame rate as well. overly complicated creations will still ruin the game. Now, the smart physics does help that a little bit, the new physics that they added, but it, of course, still has that major problem where if you make something just way too complicated, it will ruin your life. Unless, of course, it's welded to the ground, in which case it kind of calculates a little differently. So you can have large bases that are relatively okay in terms of frame rate, but you do have to watch out sometimes about how you connect things and how you keep things together so the game engine doesn't just destroy itself. And that's sort of just a thing that's always been around in Scrap Mechanic. It has gotten better. We originally only had basic physics, and then we've got advanced physics. And of course, they still give you the option to change the physics back to whatever physics you want. So I know a lot of people making these really large, complicated trains, they don't need these trains running on super advanced physics, and so they actually turn them down to like Simple 4 or Simple 5, and then the game engine calculates a lot smoother. The train still runs perfectly as you would expect along the track, and you can actually run it with like full frames and not an issue. So there are some workarounds, but again, it would be nice to see that completely gone and to see advanced physics actually work without destroying the game frame rate when we build these large creations. Back to some of the positives of Scrap Mechanic, I truly believe the main reason that Scrap Mechanic has sort of existed for so long as a game is because it's really just such an open, creative sandbox. That's really why I've enjoyed it. And of course, the community is just large and active and continuing to upload stuff to the Steam Workshop. We literally have the whole Steam Workshop full of creations on a regular basis. We play hide and seek weekly, and every week there are new maps being uploaded. People are still making all sorts of crazy custom content. There's still new mods being added to the workshop, and there's still new content added literally daily, all sorts of new creations. And as a sandbox game, truly, it is really one of the better sandbox games I think out there because of all the crazy stuff you can do. But that being said, you know, I think the community is the reason that the game has existed for so long, and not due to the lack of dev updates, right? I think without such an active community and without such people passionately engaging with the sandbox aspect of the game, I don't think it would really be where it is. I mean, obviously we enjoy playing multiplayer. We really love playing multiplayer. There are some, you know, issues with multiplayer, but really multiplayer for us only works because the community is still so active creating all these maps, and it's wonderful. We really, really enjoy all the cool stuff that the community makes, and Scrapman and I got to bring back Workshop Hunters because there's still so much insane stuff being built on the workshop. Like every day I look at the workshop and I'm just blown away with the creativity, and the Wedges update really took that to a whole new level with people building all sorts of aesthetically pleasing stuff in vanilla without having to use mods simply because they can round out the corners better and stuff. It's truly quite amazing to see how active the community is. Now, I touched on it a bit, of course, and I have to mention it again. The multiplayer desync or lag is hilarious in Scrap Mechanic. It is next level. Sometimes when we're playing, if the map is too complicated, you sort of have an issue where they fixed smart physics so that collisions between our vehicles is a little bit better in smart physics, but unfortunately it means walking around is really, really terrible for some reason. Doing anything parkour related is terrible. Versus with advanced physics, parkour gets a little bit better, but the vehicle collisions are terrible. I have no idea how any of that makes any sense. But that's just sort of the reality of the way multiplayer works in Scrap Mechanic. That being said, I still play multiplayer in it every week. I enjoy the multiplayer sessions we have. The little bit of lag and stuff that we get, we've sort of just, I guess, gotten used to at this point. Doesn't really bother us. And it's only occasionally where we come across a map where we're like, we can't play this map because the creator of this map put so much detail into it that it's just incredibly laggy and there's nothing we can do about it. But other than that, we really, really do enjoy playing Scrap Mechanic multiplayer. But there is definitely a desync, a lag issue. If you play survival, there's no cap on the number of people you can have in your game, I don't think. I'm pretty sure you can just have as many people peer-to-peer connect to you as you want. But unfortunately, you know, if you have like 30 people in your game, your world's probably going to explode and not work. And again, you run into that issue where if you have too many creations all in the same world, you know, you can start to destroy the frame rate, stuff like that. So multiplayer is great. I think multiplayer in Scrap Mechanic is wonderful if you want to do challenges or build some stuff in sandbox mode together. You can always save stuff on your lift and delete it. I don't know how viable multiplayer survival is unless you're playing in a small group. I think the mass multiplayer survival is just not compatible with Scrap Mechanic. Now, there's a couple last positive things I want to talk about with Scrap Mechanic, which I think are just super awesome. You know, challenge mode and creative mode, I think, are the best things in Scrap Mechanic ever. Challenge mode is wonderful because it lets us build environments that the player can't destroy. So obviously creative mode is great. We can go into say, I played creative mode for years before survival was even a thing, before challenge mode was even a thing. It's wonderful. We can build all sorts of custom maps. You can challenge your friends. We can do all sorts of cool stuff in creative mode and really just experiment and have fun and build all sorts of cool creations. And challenge mode, I love it, especially for things like the hide and seek maps, or when we're doing any of these custom spleef challenges, or even when we do like the sumo challenges and stuff, because there's sort of mechanics in challenge mode that are really well executed in my opinion. For example, the start finish, the fact that when your creation falls off the map, it can despawn, so you can remove parts of the map. Spleef in a regular world wouldn't work really well because big chunks of the map would lag when they have to, hit the ground and stuff. And in challenge mode, we can remove all that. So there's really some cool elements that I think challenge mode and creative mode build, and they let you do cool stuff in this sandbox physics environment. And of course, when you combine challenge mode with multiplayer, you can do some really, really cool stuff, because multiplayer, I will say, in challenge mode is arguably better in some cases, depending on how complicated the challenge is, and it really limits what the other players can do. So you can make a custom challenge that actually is like sort of guided with rules, and I think that's a really cool thing. Whereas in regular, creative mode, you can't necessarily do that all the time. But again, both those modes, I think, have their own merits. I think they're both wonderful. And of course, you can save stuff on the lift, bring it between the two worlds, and everything is just wonderfully compatible. And that's just great. The other thing I want to talk about too, which I don't really know too much about arguably, but the Steam Mod Workshop support. I know Scrap Mechanic has a custom mod tool. Let me put it this way. I'm not really a brilliant sort of person, but I was able to make and upload my own Scrap Mechanic mod. And my mod was really simple. It was just invincible parts. So I had a bunch of blocks, like the concrete wood blocks, stuff like that, the draggable blocks. And I made a set of them that had maximum durability, so you could use them in different things in creative mode and not have them get destroyed by bots and whatever else. So that's what I did, and I thought that was, relatively simple to do. Obviously, I just copied blocks and then changed some settings in them. But the fact that I was able to upload that to the Steam Workshop myself and have that mod work and be compatible in other players' games relatively easily, not having any prior mod knowledge, it is kind of nice that that works. There's a whole Steam Workshop support for modding. And again, I'm not an expert in this, but it seems like with the number of mods people upload to the workshop, that pretty much anything you can do is possible. I mean, there's a mod I saw recently, which I really want to do a challenge. It's for throwing bricks. That's the whole mod. You just throw bricks. There's nothing else to it. You just can pick up a brick and throw the brick. So I want to definitely try that out, and I don't know why that's a thing. Now, the last thing I really want to talk about when it comes to Scrap Mechanic in all my 4,000 hours of Scrap Mechanic is just the survival campaign. So survival is a wonderful thing, and it's great, and there's a lot of survival games, but I will say I don't think Scrap Mechanic survival mode is complete. I think if you played a survival mode like the Crashlander mod or the Raft Mechanic mod, I haven't played the Fant mod yet. I heard it's really good as well, so I should probably do that at some point. But either way, I think the way to make survival complete is to actually play it with one of these modded sections that actually sort of adds a quest line, adds some objectives, adds extra blocks that you need. Survival is sort of like creative missing a bunch of stuff. There's a lot of blocks you can't craft in survival, which would be very useful, but then there's also blocks that you can only craft in survival that you can't get in creative. So it's really kind of weird the way the balance is. And in fact, survival and creative are just two entirely separate games on your computer, I believe. Like, they're actually installed in two different folders, and it's just a whole different set of game files. So it's kind of weird to me that survival is so incomplete. That being said, if the devs ever update before the next pitch drop happens, then maybe we'll actually see some progression in survival. But right now, I would say if you're buying Scrap Mechanic because you want to play it as a survival game, I don't necessarily know that that's, the survival game you're going to enjoy, because it is sort of very open-ended. The survival, like right now, it's sort of the most complete objective you can do really is to complete a warehouse, and then after that there's no real objective other than just run around the map and free roam and do what you want. So it is sort of that open-ended survival experience, whereas if you want to play creative and challenge mode, I think Scrap Mechanic is the perfect game for you, because there's just some amazing sandbox elements to it that you just can't beat anywhere else. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. If you have any points you agree with, you disagree with, if you have any other points that I missed. I mean, that's sort of my opinions on the game after 4,000 hours. Like I said, I've never really talked to the devs much. One time, a long time ago, I asked the devs for a bunch of keys for Scrap Mechanic. I think this was back when I had maybe like 10,000 subscribers or something, or maybe 50,000. And I asked them for some keys in order to do a giveaway, and I think they gave me some keys for that. But that was pretty much the extent of my interaction with the devs. I don't know what's going on any more than anyone else in the general public, unfortunately, and I'd love to know more information about the development of the game, if anything's happening. The fact they released a physics update at the end of December last year gives me some weird kind of hope, but it's been like 8 months since then, and we still haven't heard anything from them. No communication, no dev blog, no nothing. So it's really hard to say what's happening. And of course, I do love the game. I still enjoy playing it. And like I said, I think the community is really the thing that drives this game. And I think the fact that there is such a wonderful community making all these cool challenges and all these cool creative things, I think that's really what keeps this game going, and I think that's what's really exciting about this game. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. This piston-powered vehicle, by the way, doesn't really work well. It's kind of weird. I don't know what's going on. I haven't built a piston-powered vehicle in a long, long time, and the timing is kind of weirdly off. So it's like this weird thing where sometimes you have to like start the switch and then stop the switch. So when you spawn it, the switch will be stopped and it'll not move, but then when you put it on, you have to like flick the switch and then unflick it, and then it gets going. I have no idea how synced this is going to be, the video. I'm actually recording all this audio after the fact. We're just gonna break the fourth wall here a little bit. It's fine. You guys understand how it goes. I recorded that whole thing of me building that piston powered vehicle, and it took a while, and then I actually had to like go away for a bit because my doorbell rang, so I don't really know. I gotta like cut that part out. But anyway, that's the whole breaking of the fourth wall thing. And then I came back and I'm like, well, now I got to record and go through my talking points, because originally I tried to record a video where I was building the piston-powered vehicle at the same time as going through my talking points, and that was like a jumbled mess. It was really hard to keep focused on what I was talking about while building the piston-powered vehicle. So that's why I was like, well, I'll voice over after the fact, but now I have no idea if the voiceover is going to line up with anything that just happened. So we'll see how it goes. But again, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. If I have anything you missed, if you have any opinions that I missed, let me know. I'm always excited to hear what you guys have to say. And let me know what you want to see in Scrap Mechanic. I really enjoy playing Scrap Mechanic. Or if there's other sandbox games that I'm not thinking of that I've missed that I clearly should check out, let me know in the comments down below. There's probably some building game out there that has live building and stuff that I've just never seen. Some Scrap Mechanic comparable thing, maybe. I don't know. If there is, you know, would love to hear from you guys. Of course, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. And as always, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and we'll see y'all next time.